With those Iowa caucuses so close, all the GOP candidates are hard at work right now. Host of 538 Politics podcast, Galen, Druke, joining me now for a little more insight. Well, we've got just 1 month left until the first votes. I can't even believe that it's here, Galen. Let's just talk about what candidates are doing in the last stretch here.
So the candidates are campaigning hard. They're making visits to Iowa and New Hampshire. They've been trying to secure endorsements, and now the governors of Iowa and New Hampshire have endorsed. So Kim Reynolds of Iowa endorsed Ron DeSantis, and of course the governor of New Hampshire, as we saw, Chris Sununu, endorsed Nikki Haley. And so at this moment in time, the alternatives to Trump appear to be DeSantis and Haley. And from a big picture, what they're really trying to do is change the subject or really change the dynamic in a big way. You know, John Karl said that Trump still leads in all the polls that we're looking at. Nationally, on average, he leads with about 60% support. And DeSantis and Haley have only about 12% support. In Iowa and New Hampshire, it's closer. In Iowa, DeSantis has about 20% support, and in New Hampshire, Haley has about 20% support. So the gap there is more like 25 points. But we've looked at this at 538. You know, what's the average polling change in the final month before the caucuses? And on average, it's 4 points. That gets them nowhere close to the former president. So really, they need to garner attention and hope that something changes in a big way as far as this primary is concerned.
So how do you think this endorsement from New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu will help Nikki Haley with now just weeks before the primary race?
It is helpful, but I think it's difficult to say yes to the question, will this help her beat Donald Trump in the primary? So these kinds of endorsements are most helpful in races that are pretty close or where a lot of voters haven't made up their minds. And a lot of Republican voters in this race have made up their minds. And in fact, when you look at the polls, you know, Donald Trump's supporters in the Republican primary are less likely to say they're considering other candidates than the folks who support Haley or DeSantis. So it helps. And Chris Sununu is a very popular governor. You know, he won in New Hampshire by 15 points in 2022, a state that Donald Trump lost by 8 points in 2020. This is a guy that if we were talking about a general election, his endorsement might matter more, and Nikki Haley would be doing better in New Hampshire. But we're talking about a Republican primary here, and the Republican primary electorate is very different from a general electorate. You know, like, just look at the numbers. Donald Trump remains very popular amongst Republicans with 80+% favorability within that party.
So President Biden is blasting House Republicans, newly formalized impeachment inquiry that we've been following, saying that they're attacking him with lies rather than doing anything to make Americans' lives better. What are the polls showing about how Americans feel about this inquiry?
Yeah, so as we can see on the screen, when it comes to opening the inquiry, Americans are more supportive than they do oppose it. You know, it's really close. It's only a 2-point gap. But that's notable. And what's also notable is that 15% of Americans haven't really made up their minds on this. Probably folks also haven't been paying a lot of attention. Now, there's actually more support for this impeachment inquiry than there was when Democrats opened up their impeachment inquiry into Trump in 2019. But I think the big difference is that back then, Democrats were very skeptical about going down that path. Whereas Republicans have been talking openly about this impeachment inquiry and supporting it, and the leadership of the party has been supporting it for months at this point. And so there's just been more of a case made for it in the public sphere. But when it comes to actually impeaching the president, more Americans say they don't want to see that than they do want to see that. And we've seen, you know, history shows us from the 90s that when Republicans decided to impeach Bill Clinton, there was a significant backlash. He was seen as a victim. And so when it comes to the general election, I don't know if Republicans are making the best move if they actually go down that path.
A lot to track. Glad we have you, Galen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.